So Tim, welcome to CNBC. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
What do the latest numbers out of Emirates tell us about the state of the recovery?
Well, for Emirates, we are actually experiencing a very strong recovery. Don't forget, we started really in the summer of 21, with a little bit going on in 2020. We organized ourselves at the beginning of 21 to start taking back all the resources that we had laid off. Principally the human capital side of things, got the fleet back into a high level of serviceability. So by October of last year, we were operating probably about 60% of our original capacity. And that's been gradually expanded up to June of this year, where as we sit today. It's a good story. I still have about 60 380s on the ground, but as soon as our crews are retrained, we brought them all back again as best we can. We'll get the rest of them in the air probably about the end of this year, the beginning of next year.
So Tim, I've been speaking with aviation executives on the ground here in Doha. One of the main concerns they've been raising with me is about the soaring cost of everything, including the price of fuel. Are rising prices going to derail the recovery in your view?
You know, it's a very interesting question. Everything that's going on now defies laws of economics, macro and micro. So on the one hand, you have a surging demand for air travel. That's not surprising, given that the global economy was so globalized for the last 30 years. And countries have been completely restricted or banged up, sorry, for 2 years. So it's unlikely that, irrespective of impediment, whether it be price, whether it be airport facilities, that demand is going to dissipate in the short term. In other words, we haven't got to the tipping point in elasticities yet, surprisingly, simply because the airline community has had to raise its prices to cover off and mitigate the fuel price increase, which has been astronomical. But the demand remains resilient, and we don't see any slackening of that, which is very, very interesting, because in my career, I've never seen anything like it. So it's a question of what will happen first. Will demand taper or dilute over the next years as these major economic factors which are so adverse to our business and the global economy remain in place, or they go down first? I don't know which is what it's going to be. At the moment, the airline community is managing and actually making a little bit of money. We have very strong cargo, very strong passenger demand, as I said, much higher yields. Now, it's anybody's guess as to which way that's going to go. When do I see that? Personally, with the amount of capacity that has been stripped out, airline seats out of the market, we still don't see China and larger Asian countries. I think there may be a continuum of what we're doing today. And therefore, if we're smart about what we're doing, we could come out of this with a little bit of money in our pockets, but we'll see.
So you are navigating this incredibly complex geo-economic environment. In your experience, have you seen anything like this in the past? And to another point, how soon before we get some relief when it comes to rising prices, particularly fuel?
Well, look, as I said earlier, I have never seen anything like this. There are major distortions to the supply of labour. And labour in itself has taken on much different characteristics than we've ever understood in the past. Putting people at home, working from home, has caused a lot of people to think about what they do. So not only do you have a change in the fundamentals of the supply of labour, but labour itself has changed. This causes a disequilibrium in many areas, such as supply chain, which works its way through to airport activity in ours. But it works through to automotive, it works through to all the sectors of the economy that require that kind of thing. Until we get equilibrium, because we are in a state of disequilibrium at the moment, there's no point trying to fudge that fact, whether it be high oil prices, production difficulties, supply chain difficulties, the war in Ukraine, all this has been hugely disruptive. So what have I seen? Nothing like this. But I'm always an optimist. I do see a way around it. I believe the airline industry has the resilience and the creativity, the versatility to manage this and get through it fairly within the next year or two.
What do you make of this criticism that the airline industry simply wasn't prepared for the velocity of the rebound that we've seen in travel demand? I guess the Middle East, a little more immune, but at airports and airlines across Europe and the United States, we're seeing big cancellations, major delays as well. Was the airline industry too late to react?
Well, look, I think I was a bit of a voice in the wilderness in 2020 and 2021 saying that this would all come back, and when it did come back, there would be a bow wave of demand, the likes of which we had never seen before. Now, as far as Emirates is concerned, with that belief, we organised ourselves. Not only that, but the aviation sector in the UAE did that as well. Others didn't perhaps share the view. So when I was talking about demand coming back in 2021, 2022, 23, others were talking about demand coming back to pre-pandemic levels in 26 and 27. So as this permeated a lot of the supply infrastructure facilities to our business, whether it be airports or even aerospace, there was a belief that they should take capacity out, reduce costs, etc., etc. But they did it to such a level that return to at pace would be almost impossible. And this is what we're facing today. Can I blame them for taking those views? No, I can't. I don't share the views. And we did try and tell them, be warned. We know what it's like when, everything gets going. And I know how our markets, South Africa, South America, Asia, Europe, America, all react in the ways where we faced adversity before. So what we're facing now is a result of all of this. And there's not a lot of blame games going on at the moment. It's all rather acrimonious. I mean, yesterday night, we were told that one of our Heathrow services had to be cancelled. That was last night. And we've got 1,000 people going in and out on each service. So to cancel a service is hugely problematical for us. But in the end, this is not peculiar to our business or the aviation. It's everywhere. So whether it be the hospitality sector, I mentioned automotive, parts, you can't get them. We've just got to muddle through this and focus on getting the job done rather than beating each other up all the time. It doesn't serve any purpose. Get the job done as quickly as possible. Help each other. Don't keep doubling prices or putting 100, 400% price increases, or it doesn't serve any purpose. That's not going to get us through it. In fact, that'll take us back. We've got to get a collegial approach to how we can get ourselves through this until the external forces to our business go into equilibrium. They move from disequilibrium to equilibrium. That will come.
So Tim, what does all of this mean for Emirates' bottom line?
Well, at the moment, I'm pleased to say we're making money. Notwithstanding the fuel prices, and we're hoping, having lost in the year before last just about $6 billion, reduced that to just over $1 billion last year, and as you see, the underlying is to go into profitability in this financial year. I do hope that happens. Unless something else extraordinary happens, I think Emirates will be profitable in this financial year.
I also wanted to ask you about some of the other initiatives at the airline. I spoke with Sheikh Ahmed last month and I asked him about this question of whether or not one day in the future we're going to see Emirates or the Emirates Group become a public company. And he didn't rule it out. He said it could possibly be on the horizon. What's your view? And is this an open discussion now at Emirates?
Well, look, this has been an ongoing discussion. Sheikh Ahmed will probably have told you that it's happened many times before. And there is a move in the UAE economy as a whole to start introducing IPOs. We've had one recently with TCOM. And it kind of follows a general trend where government, we saw the huge one in Saudi Arabia with Aramco. So there is a view that perhaps this could be a good way forward. Now, I will only say, if you do that, make absolutely sure that the enterprise value of the business is well understood and valued, because you don't want to sell yourself short. But it's their call. What they do is the ownership's job, and I will just do, or my team will just do what they're told to do by the shareholder.
Do you think it would make sense, though, to have Emirates go public, or either Emirates, the Emirates Group, or perhaps some of its subsidiaries?
As a sort of free marketeer, I tend to believe in market forces driving a lot of things. The Emirates is very, very close to the government of Dubai. It's a critical factor in its success, not the only factor by any stretch of the imagination. And I think they take the view that it's an essential pillar of the economy, and that probably if you start opening it up, it might change course a little bit. That's not to say it would, but I think there is a view, the jury's out as to the criticality of it. Don't forget, everybody has to come into Dubai by air, basically, although we have a thriving cruise industry, I should say. So it's something that'll be a subject of debate, I would say, for quite a long time to come.
And looking ahead from here, where is the next phase of growth going to come from for Emirates?
Well, look, we have very ambitious plans. Where we're hamstrung, of course, is that the aerospace industry, both Boeing and Airbus, not so much Airbus, but Boeing are kind of retarding our growth plan. So we were meant to have 777-9s in April of 2020. We're not likely to get those until the middle of 25. So we're over a 5-year delay on that.
And Boeing has its own problems, of course, as well.
It does, and that's another story altogether. But the manifestation of that is the uncertainty of what is actually going to happen. We have 53 50s which will start being delivered in hopefully the middle of 24, and we're compressing the delivery as best we can to get as many of those into the air as possible. There are multiple points that an aircraft like the 350 will do for us, which are perhaps too small for a 777-300 in R. So we've got maybe another 10 points in the United States, probably equal number in South America, lots more in Africa, Asia. We could do more in Oceania as well. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've had to retain a lot of our 777s, refurbish them, recondition them, put business class, upgrade all the products in the belief that we're going to have to keep those for longer than we would have liked to have done, but they'll be great though.
Let's talk about the competition in the region as well, because the word in the street is that Saudi Arabia is about to come out with a new full-service airline. What do you know about Saudi Arabia's plans?
Well, I think it might be commensurate with their general plans to open the economy, these huge trillion-dollar projects like the NEOM project, etc. And if you want to make that work, you've got to bring people in. And therefore, they obviously believe that, a bit like Emirates has been to Dubai, it's critical in that plan. Execution, as against aspiration, are two different things. So it's not easy. But if they have the will to do it, good luck to them.
So do you think it would be competition or a compliment for Emirates to have a large carrier right across the road in Saudi Arabia?
Put it this way. If we were all fishing in the same pond, maybe. But if that pond becomes an ocean, simply because today Saudi Arabia, I don't know, maybe has 10 million tourists. Say they go up to 100 million tourists. Now, you need all the help you can get, whether it be from their own airlines or other carriers in the margins geographically. So if they do what they wanted to do, it's possible that there could be a bit for everybody. So I'm not overly concerned about it personally.
Do you have a message for the Saudis? You've got a lot of experience. I'm sure they could use your help.
Well, they know what you're doing, get the people in who know what they are doing, and have a track record of delivering that kind of thing. It is not easy to take an airline from a piece of paper, as well I know, to the kind of scale they're talking about. And if they're not, you're only as good as your people. Any business is only as good as the men and women who work the business for you. Aeroplanes can be purchased and run. It's the people who do it. Human capital is probably the most critical thing in all businesses. But in this particular area, and you're talking about mega investments, be sure you know what you're doing.
And so, Tim, before I let you go, I also know that you postponed your retirement to come back and lead Emirates through the pandemic and the recovery. You said you wanted to set the airline on the right course before you announce your retirement part 2 or attempt 2. Is that in sight yet? Are you seeing that the airline is on a recovery trajectory where you feel comfortable enough to say it's time?
The plans that were put in place at the end of 20, beginning of 21, are the ones we've stuck to. And because we stuck to them, we're now out of the woods, we're making money, And I hope that in the financial results that we'll declare in May of next year, it'll be a good story. So far, so good.
And have you made a decision about your own future at the airline?
Well, look, I've always said I may not be hands-on as much as I am today or have been in the past. I'll always be around. I'm kind of part of the whole thing. You want to make sure it's working and let the guys get on with the job, but not interfering with it. But I'll probably sit as in an advisory capacity to my current boss, Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum. He's the chairman of the group. We get on well together. Probably that's how it'll be, without being a nuisance.
It's great to speak with you today. Thank you for sharing your experience with me.
You're welcome.